from Story Up Studios here at VRLA, special broadcast with VRScout, and we are so stoked to have all of you creators, all of you industry experts, all of you hardware manufacturers that are creating some really important tools for creators to create even better VR. So thanks for being here and talking about my favorite topic, which is virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. So here at VRLA, world's largest expo, phenomenal things out there. What are some of the booths, some of the technology that you're seeing here that is really exciting, perhaps for some of the folks that aren't able to make it here to the Los Angeles Convention Center? Ryan, what are you seeing?
I really love the Microsoft HoloLens Easter egg experience. It made me realize how much I wanted the field of view to be bigger. I wanted anything that makes me want, anything that makes me more excited about VR is the reason I'm here. You know, I just want to, this is the culmination and the catalyst for what's next.
And it's really cool, how it's an actual activation too, and there's this physical space that you have to go into.
Yeah, they have these big, styrofoam trees and stuff over there. It's amazing how much it's grown since last year and how much it's grown since the year before last. Gosh almighty, it's crazy. It's awesome.
The art is beautiful. It is towards the back of the exhibit hall, doing some phenomenal things with using VR as healing properties. So definitely check that out. That's what I think is most exciting about this space here. And how about you? What are some things that you're seeing?
No, I'm a technology guy through and through. So I'm a product guy, and people like Intel, right? Even though they don't necessarily have that end user product, but it's all the technology that's inside of that. Really kind of gets me amped up about how do we take the imaging industry and allow people to create amazing VR content.
So speaking of people, let's introduce ourselves. I know I gave you just a brief introduction, but if you can expand on that just a bit. Ryan Bell of VRScout.
So I am a content creator, community guy. I help put together events. I actually was shooting video with Jim at the Santa Monica Pier the other day. And yeah, so I love playing with cameras. And right now I'm working on a very independent and art type of piece with 360 video. So yeah, that's kind of me.
That's great. And everybody knows Jen.
Aw, Sarah's way too sweet and gives me, honestly, way too much credit. But I'm the co-founder of Shift and co-founder of Women in VR. I'm also a VR director. Been working a lot on really focusing in on the art at the intersection of technology and storytelling. So for me, a lot of what that has meant when I started to think about the stories that I wanted to tell using this medium, I think, at least for me, my first step is kind of nailing aesthetic, nailing mood, tone, lighting, and all these little details that really end up creating a world and building an experience, whether that's in live action or interactive.
Excellent. I'm an entrepreneur. We're based in Missouri. Story Up Studios is at the intersection of journalism and neuroscience. So we're compounding media, much like you compound drugs, to elicit specific brainwave patterns. So that's what we do. Jim, how about you at Vuze?
I don't know that I can follow that. So my name is Jim Malcolm. I'm with Humanized Technologies. We're the maker of the Vuze camera. My background goes back, I spent a lot of time with Sony Electronics and launched the world into digital photography. I left there and went over to Ricoh and actually worked with them to develop the Theta, which is a 2D 360 camera, and then found out that we really need to have 3D in order to do true virtual reality. So I met the folks over at Humanized who have a lot of expertise in 3D modeling and 3D printing. I joined them to help them on the hardware side in order to bring the Vuze camera to market and really try to change the industry.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about those definitions, and I know we've got some overhead sound. And this goes back and forth as far as the true definition of virtual reality. And we on this couch might not all agree on what that definition is. So when I ask you what is VR, what is your response to that?
Yeah, so that's the 900-pound gorilla in the room, right? So I'll tell you my perspective, because I'm about taking true life and turning it into virtual reality, right? So CGI, computer-generated worlds that you can room scale and move around in, I know a lot of purists are going to go down that path. Mine's a little bit different, which is how do you create a virtual time machine in virtual reality so you can transport somebody back to that time? And there are some requirements to that. One is 3D. Without 3D video, it's not virtual reality, right? You can't simulate a 2D video in a headset and try to make it feel real. It also requires 3D audio, so that you have directional points that, depending on what you're looking at, it sounds like it's coming from you. So from that point of view, and then we can layer on top of all kinds of other requirements as far as frame rates or what have you, but the least common denominator for me is any medium that creates a full 360-degree immersive world in 3D with 3D audio.
And see, to me, just playing devil's advocate, I disagree just a little bit on the 3D, 2D, because to me, anything in a headset is VR. I think as creators, it's important that we draw those differentiations between 3D and 2D, but I wonder if sometimes we aren't confusing the public with our definitions of monoscopic, stereoscopic, and all of this. Is anything in a headset VR? To me, that's kind of how I come down on it, and I'd be curious to hear. And we all don't have to agree, which is great.
I think you touched on a very important thing, confusing the public. Like if you're speaking to somebody and you're saying VR, and then you have to go in and say you're giving a TEDx speech. You don't want 15 minutes, you don't want 3 minutes of it going into what's the difference between these things. Well, Leah Probst at VRScout says it's on a spectrum. So if you're able to say that it's on a spectrum, because it is, the more immersed that you are, the more real your virtual is. So I say that's probably the easiest way, because the last thing I want to do is have somebody that could be interested in virtual reality feel dumb. So that's my opinion.
Well, and taking that and really expanding on the point that Ryan made, I've always positioned VR as a spectrum of interactivity. And Leah and I have talked about this extensively. I think at the very beginning of that spectrum, you have 360 video, whether that's on web or whether that's in a headset, whether it's mono or stereo, because at the end of the day, if you're defining it as a spectrum of interactivity, the audience still they're interacting with the content because they have control and agency over the X and Y axis. But as you go further along the spectrum of interactivity, you start to get more movement on the Z-axis with seated experiences. And then all the way at the end of the spectrum, you have full immersion, room scale experiences that you can walk around and you're tracking one-to-one. And I think what's interesting about our industry right now is because we don't have standard definitions, because we're all still figuring it out, but it goes back to what Ryan was saying too. If you define it as a spectrum, you're opening that door up to more people to even just start dabbling in it.
And yeah, people start to ask, what about the spectrum? Where is this on the spectrum? I love that sounds like the greatest title of a blog post, the spectrum of interactivity.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? Doesn't it? I want to leave your guided now. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Can we co-write it?
Yeah, let's co-write that.
Yeah, but to get off of that, the technical side of things, right? It's got to be comfortable. I think that's one of the biggest objections that we hear when people put on headsets. If the video is not comfortable, then they're less likely to put a headset on again and try something else. So we run a risk as an industry that we have to make sure that if we're going to put something in a headset, it's filmed in a way that doesn't make people feel like they're sick. It doesn't feel uncomfortable that they're in the experience, because they run the risk of not putting that headset on again. So 3D tends to help that comfort point of view, where it feels natural and it feels comfortable to be in that headset.
And bad 3D can really make it even,
Fair enough.
Yeah, bad.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
But I was just gonna, sorry, to add to that, coming from the perspective of a director and a content creator in the space, I think, yes, I completely understand the importance of technical things. This is why we use specific cameras to shoot specific things. Like, there's no, at least to my knowledge right now, there hasn't really been a one camera for everything. But that being said, it's more, I think we also have a responsibility not only to look to the technical side, but also the actual content side. Because someone probably won't be that compelled to put on a headset again if the first thing that they experience isn't even really good content across the board.
Right.
How familiar are you with that camera?
So I've seen you guys launch things online. I actually haven't tried it yet. It's probably why I'm sitting on this couch. But
So we're anxious to look at that, and you can go ahead and break it out. Tell us about it. How does it work?
Yeah, so let's get into the technology in a second. What I'm going to do is I'll start a video while I talk about it. I basically just turn the camera on itself. I'm going to just push the on button. I'll put it up a little bit higher so it's that. And I'm just going to put the camera here for now. But the camera has a total of 8 lenses on it. We use 4 of those cameras to create a 4K video for your left eye. We use the other 4 to create a 4K video for your right eye. Now, both of those videos are spatially offset the width of the human eyes, right? So if you look at the camera width and you look at the human eyes. Now, also in the VR headset, when we play it back, that's also spatially offset. So now what we're doing is we're fooling the brain to see 3D. So not only are you seeing 360 degrees with everything around you, but you're also seeing in 3D, both up and down 90 degrees. So in essence, we're creating 180 degrees by 360 degree video. So we've just now created a video, and the camera itself is a shoot and store device because we are creating so much data, right? We have 8 full HD cameras, so we're creating about 1 gigabyte of data for every 1 minute of recording.
What's the output as far as resolution?
Yep, so you can put out all the way up to cinematic 4K 4096 by 2160 for...
Can you make it mono too if you wanted?
You can make it mono as well. So if you were to take that file and even as stereo and push it up to YouTube or Facebook, if you're playing back on an iPad or your computer and you want to drag it around and do 2D, no problem. They'll absolutely do that. So just go through the technology a little bit more. It's got a standard 1/4-20 mount on the bottom, so it's easy to integrate into anything that you want to do. Like I said, since we are a shoot and store device, we have a micro SD card in the camera that stores it in there. You can just take that memory card out and put it into your computer.
1 micro SD,
One.
not 8. Notice he said 1. So all the camera.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm not having to manage all of those cards and try to figure out how to do this. Now we do render directly with the Humanized VR Studio software in order to create the video. And the reason we do that is because when we manufacture this camera, we put it in a special control room, calibrate and understand exactly what every camera is seeing, what every lens is seeing, so that we can pixel lock, frame lock, and color lock all of those cameras together to create a seamless VR experience.
So what you're telling me is I'm not clapping and spinning the camera with that. It's
No.
pixel level sync. You press one button and all of the 8 cameras fire.
That's right. That's right. And then when you're ready to make a video, you just connect it to your computer via USB, or if you want to go faster, you can put it into a card reader and put it into, I use a USB-C card reader and move the files over. But once you connect it and turn your computer on, or turn the camera on, the software is going to automatically detect that the camera's been attached, and it will automatically launch the software. So once you're into the Humanized VR Studio software, I can simply push import to preview and edit. There is a simpler way to do this, which is just to render it out. So if I have all of my presets done and I know exactly what I want for output, I can just push one button and off it goes. So in this case, this is the video that we just shot. I'm going to go ahead and choose it. I'm going to import it into the computer. It's going to ask me where I want to store it. I'm just going to go to the default folder on my C drive, but I can move it anywhere. And so now what we're doing is we're moving the file, which is about 750 megabytes, over from the camera to the computer. And it's transferring over. Come on.
14 seconds.
14 seconds left.
So you said about 700 megabytes, right?
Yep, so this particular file is 757 meg, and the file will come up here in a minute is about, I think we recorded about 50 seconds. Yeah, exactly 50 seconds.
So what do we have control over in camera? Do we have control over ISO? Any coloring?
So at this point, no, because it's very complex what's happening in that camera. So we are automatically managing the exposure, ISO settings, everything in the camera itself. Now there are some controls after you capture, but during capture we're actually capturing all that raw data within our format.
How does it work in low light?
So, a lot of people ask that. I don't really have a lux rating for it, so I will tell you that it will perform about like a GoPro does in low light. Okay, the camera will record in either 80 megabits per second or 120 megabits per second. So if you're in that lower light, you're going to want to shoot at 180 megabits per second and render your files out that way.
How about the being able to adjust the horizon? Are you able to do that in Humanize, or?
So you bring up a very interesting point. You don't want to adjust your horizon post-shooting when you shoot in 3D. And the reason being is unlike, say, the Theta or Gear VR, where you can shoot at an angle, and then afterwards you can correct the horizon. In this case, you really can't do that. And let me just unplug the camera and explain why. These are your human eyes. So if I do not have the camera level when I shoot, even if I correct that horizon, I'm now using stereo pairs that are at an angle to the horizon. So when you shoot in virtual reality video or 360 3D, you want to make sure that you have your camera level when you shoot. And if you shoot inverted, same thing, you want the camera to be level. And I'll show you real quick how you can fix that.
If you shot monoscopically, though, if you chose the monoscopic, would you be able to adjust the horizon in software?
Not in our software.
Okay, gotcha.
You could then go into third-party software and you could correct the horizon. You know, I get that question asked a lot. What if I want to just do 2D? You can. The real intent of this product is 3D. So there are other products out there that maybe if your only goal is to do 2D, there may be other solutions out there that can do work for you. This is really intended to play back in a headset. And we believe that to really drive the adoption and the retention of virtual reality headsets, we need to create more content for those headsets. And so as we get tens of thousands of these cameras out there and millions of minutes are being created in VR content, this is what's going to drive the adoption and utilization of headsets, which is what's going to fuel the entire professionally, commercially produced content, because they're going to have people who are, you know, really looking for more and more ways to enjoy true storytelling.
Right.
So so in this case, let's go ahead and just preview and edit this one video here. This is the video I just shot. Because I did not use my mobile phone to turn it on and off, I used my hand. I could use the Wi-Fi connection and use my mobile phone to do it. My hand's in there. So the first thing I want to do is trim my video so my hand's not in there. So I grab this top tool up here and I can simply tell it, I want this to be my start point of the video. I can then scroll over here, go to an end point, and say, you know what, I want this to be the end point. I don't want you to see me turning the camera off at the end, or that funny look on my face. The next thing that I can do in the software is I can flip the horizon. So now we're upside down. But this is, if I fly this camera with a drone, I want to fix it, or I want to hang it from the ceiling. You know, I don't want to rig it off the floor. This is how I can flip my horizon. Very simple in our software.
Can you move it horizontally?
So, great question. That's the next icon.
Okay.
It's almost like I prompted you.
Mine.
This is called Choose Center. And I can choose what I want the people to look at when they first put on the headset, right? So this is the default field of view. In this case, let's go ahead and put it over here to this green screen, and we'll use that as the default when you put on the headset. This next piece here is really interesting. This one here is what we call cut field of view. Now what the cut field of view allows me to do is decide how much of that 360 I actually want to render. So the practical example is, let me put it at 180 degrees. And let's say I'm filming live action. And I have my director, my craft cart, my lighting, my sound crew all on this side of the room, and all of my live action on that side. I render the video that side of the room first. Then I move everybody to the other side of the room, and I do all my live action on the other side. Then I render the opposite 180 degrees. Then when I put it back together into a headset, or in post, now I use Adobe Premiere to put it together. We don't put it together in our software. Now I've got a 360 degree world that's seamless, that's in 3D, that was filmed at 2 separate times. Or quite frankly, it could be 2 separate locations, or it could be multiple locations. So it's just this huge creative tool to be able to choose how much of that 360 you want to render.
If we are shooting something and we're seeing either a stereo convergence issue or a stitch issue, is there a way for us to immediately fix that, or?
So not while you're filming, but in post there is. So let me show you how to do that. You're going to come to this little icon here, the advanced tools. And if I find a stitch error in the video, I'm going to add that frame. And if you watch this carefully, you're going to see it jump. So I don't know if you saw the guy that was over on the stage over here.
Yep.
Let me take it off for a second. I'm going to take out that stitch point. Oh wait, it's at the end of the field. So I'm going to take the stitch point out for a second. See how this guy here, he's got a stitch error on him. He is actually right on, like the worst place that you could be on this camera is off of a diagonal. Yeah. But I'm going to add that field. The software is going to look at the software and it's going to find that error and then it corrected for it. So now he's corrected. And I can go through the video and I can find other places where that might happen, and I can correct for it. Now, in all honesty, if you're too close on a corner, we might not be able to fix it. And too close meaning within 1.5 meters or about 5.5, 6 feet, all right? If you're on camera axis, you can come in within about 6 inches, and we can focus that camera and we can distribute the 3D effect. Now, it's going to feel uncomfortably close because it's going to be like you having something 6 inches from your face, but we absolutely 100% can render that out.
Do you have the ability to import an equirectangular from another camera into humanized software and manipulate it, or is it strictly from?
No, right now we are married between our camera and our software, which is really where the core competency of Humanize comes from. They've been in business over 16 years, hold over 70 patents in 3D printing, 3D modeling, and computer-generated graphics. Now, rather than making a camera and trying to figure out the software, we're exactly the opposite. We understand the software. Now we came out with a product in order to utilize our software. So that's why we have such a strong end-to-end solution.
That's great.
So
How about, go ahead.
the software part of it is like so interesting to me because I'm not going to name out any names, but there's some pain in the butt softwares out there.
Yeah.
And this one is nice. How deep, because I've seen it from the beginning, how deep are we going to be able to go? Is this going to be something that I'm not going to have to go and do this and then go to Premiere?
So in our software today, I'll give you an end-to-end video that you can immediately throw up to Facebook, YouTube, put into a headset, do anything you want with.
Okay.
The storytellers, that's where the real power is going to come. So they're still going to want to take that standard H.264 file that we create, put it in, and be able to render out and create, tell their story, right? The storytelling craft isn't going away by having a virtual reality camera. How we tell stories is changing, right? And the role of the director changes dramatically. It's not just a camera angle and an actor's world. It is the entire world. It's everything that's happening. It's the space. It's the distance, because in 3D, distance matters. So your director is going to choose, I want my main subject to be here because I want dramatic effect. Like one of the most interesting videos that I saw that really drives us through is the Invisible series.
Yeah.
And if you've watched Invisible, there's a series, and I'm sorry, here we go, I'm going to ruin the plot for a second, but there's a scene where the camera is very close to the floor, in fact, almost on the floor. And when you move to that scene, you're like, why am I on the floor? This makes no sense to me. But as you turn around, you find that you're actually in a pool of blood, and there's a body next to you. So that dramatic effect of being, like you're putting somebody at ground level in a pool of blood, inches away from a dead body, the cinematic effect, the impact, the emotional impact of that is so dramatic. And that's what this type of a product, because it's small and it's light and it's mobile, it just makes storytelling so powerful.
For those of you just joining us, I just want to remind you that you're watching a broadcast by VRScout. We are at VRLA and the Los Angeles Convention Center in the West Hall. We've got Ryan Bell here from VRScout, Jen Duong from Women in VR, and Jim Malcolm here showing us his amazing camera and amazing software too. Like this is a very clean interface, you know, compared to you know,
So
what
stitching
content
software is.
creators
Yeah.
have.
I mean, I've got to say, I'm impressed that you wanted to do this live. You know, like really, that's a lot of faith in something that, you know. How much does the camera cost?
So the Vuze camera is an $800 product.
It used to cost $500 an hour to stitch.
Yeah, and not only
Yeah,
is it
think about
an
it that
$800 product, right? We can render about 1 minute of video in about 1 minute. So this particular laptop has got an NVIDIA 1060 card. Again, I told you earlier on that I'm a techno guy, right? But it's not it's not the top of the line. It's got 6 gig of RAM in it.
You said 1080?
1060.
Oh, 1060, okay.
So it's an okay, right? But even with that, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and render this video right now. When I render it, I have some decisions to make. I do want to do 3D. I can do 16:9 or 2:1. Or I can go custom. So in this case, let's go all the way to cinematic 4K and do 4096. And to be honest with you, I actually just did this like totally exciting thing earlier today where I've created a 4K by 4K video. So it's 4096 by 2100 2180. 4096 by 2180, top and bottom. So the resulting file is 4096 by 4096.
That's awesome.
And an HTC Vive, unbelievable. It's beautiful. But anyway, and then we'll just call this out. Now, what I'm going to do today, because I'm going to actually put it into a headset for us, is I'm going to call it _360 _ TB. Now, this is just apps and software like to look at certain file structures. We'll put that on there.
And we got a 3-minute mark. I just got
Okay,
that time,
perfect.
so.
And I'm going to render it off. So now it's rendering out. We are creating a 44-second video, and it's taking us less than that to do it. So
That's phenomenal. The output is an MP4 H.264, you said, correct?
Yep.
4096 by 2160, although you've been playing with 2180 in a Vive.
yeah. So we can do 41. Yeah. So this is 4096 by 2180. 2680 is what I just did.
So where do they get this? You mentioned that it's $800.
Yep.
And how about the software? Does it come as a software bundle or?
The software comes with the camera. It's you get 5 licenses with the purchase of the camera itself, so you have multiple machines you want to render. Vuze.camera is the fastest way to order one right now. We are fulfilling back orders. Unfortunately, right now, if you bought today, it's probably May before you actually get product in hand.
Excellent.
I'll let you talk amongst yourselves. I'm just going to put this video onto a headset real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's your reaction after seeing that? Creators and you know, it's a process. I always say that making compelling immersive media is like sausage. Everyone wants to taste it, but nobody wants to see it being made because it is a pain in the rear.
Man, I gotta say, I got inspired by shooting with him the other day. He was nice enough to call me up and say, "You want to go shoot some stuff?" And his mentality. I mean, he's worked at Sony, he's worked at Ricoh, just going out and shooting it. And I sometimes get a little too nervous because and then I'm like I worry. And he's like, no, just shoot content and then worry about it later. And that's a camera that you can do it because it's portable. The battery life is really good. I mean, gosh, I think the software is the long-term play for if you're able to do software for a camera that is 3D stereoscopic. Because there's nothing on the market that does that at that price point, is there?
Not at that price point, but I think what's really exciting is seeing how this is going to impact the ease of workflow for a lot of people.
Right.
Especially like if you don't have fiber at your studio and you don't have the capabilities of uploading to a cloud-based stitching solution, very much like Google Jump, and that's probably one of my favorite cameras to use is the GoPro Odyssey. But like with that, there's a lot of like file management that has to kind of come into play as well as like a lot of storage. And it's just so, like, I don't know, I kind of need to get in the headset, I feel like, before I say anything else, but.
Well, this is kind of like a cooking show.
Yeah.
Like he made it, and now we're going to get it tasted and see whether or not that it's delicious.
Jim cooks.
Jim Malcolm from the Vuze here. We need to wrap it up right now. So, and I'll let you put it on Jen's face, and she is going to be the final taste tester of this 360-degree camera. Anything that you want to say?
No, just the fact that we can actually create 360-degree 3D virtual reality content within minutes, and it's an incredibly powerful experience. We're here to help grow an industry.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's what's exciting about this is I think we're going to see something similar to what we saw when YouTube really started exploding, and that was you had a lot of content creators that started to understand technology, but they understood the technology to the level that they needed to put out that content. And with something like this, I think it's really exciting because this could potentially really open up the mass market for prosumer shooters, therefore making content. I think we're going to see like another rise of VR content creators, and like this is actually really cool.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
That's really.
Guys, I apologize. We're out of time. They're giving me the wrap up. But Jim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us
thank
and
you.
all of your toys. Best of luck to you with the views. And
Thank you.
hey, thanks for hanging with us.
So I can steal that, right?
Yeah, that's
Can I
part
say that
of
on
it,
my
right?
broadcast?
Yeah.
Is that thank
You can play with it.
See you later, guys. You've been watching VR Scout at VRLA.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.